Hello, good afternoon. I'm Vanessa, Director of Institutional Relations at Unicamp Innovation Agency. Well, this webinar is a organization of Unicamp, right, in partnership with our global partners, the universities that are partners with us at Unicamp in this area of entrepreneurship and innovation, right? We'll talk a bit about this further on. Thank you very much for being with us today. I'd like to say that this webinar is being recorded, and afterwards it will be available on YouTube, and we'll disseminate that on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media of Unicamp. Well, about how we will interact, we would like this to be a space to make questions and so on. So during the webinar, you can chat, right, say hello and so on. But if you want to make questions, please be sure that you send those questions to the Q&A, the questions and answers. And that is a tool that is in the bottom of your screen, right? So you can use it if you want to direct a question to Fernando, to Eric, or to Professor Newton. Just send the questions there in the Q&A, and I'll direct them by the end of our conversation. In the morning, we had Ayanda, Mariana, and Newton talking. And now in the afternoon, we will have Professor Fernando and Professor Eric, right? Those from the Javeriana Cali and University of Florida talking about their experience. They will talk, and then we will go for a debate when we will talk about the questions you send, all right? To start with you and talk about the global partner programs, I would like to invite Professor Newton Frateschi, Executive Director of Unicamp Innovation Agency, to talk to you. Hello, Newton, be welcome.
Hello, thank you, Vanessa. Let me try to share the screen here before I start talking. And I guess, okay.
Yes, it's working. Good.
All right. Okay. Well, first of all, good afternoon. Actually, good night for some of the people that actually is watching us. I mean, for the global partners, spreads about 7 hours in time zones, from let's say almost like California time to South Africa time. So my presentation here is very short, and just want to say some few words about what our goals, our mission in terms of the Global Partners Program, and how you can become part of our Global Partners Program. So it's a very, very short presentation. So what is the program? It's been created by Unicamp, by us, and basically we want to strengthen the relationship with the international innovation entrepreneurship players. And these players can be incubators, accelerators, and innovation agencies. And the participation has no cost. So the idea is basically, we kind of become a hub, or the global partners become a hub, where lots of people may come to us, and we also bring some of our own experiences, sharing with these other institutions. And this has two ways. I mean, the same way our experience is shared with the universities, and universities share with us. Plus, we have contacts that anything that happens to any of our network can be shared amongst ourselves in a way that we can potentialize our innovation and entrepreneurship actions. And more specifically, our goals, basically, one of them is to strengthen connections among global universities, and basically want to foster entrepreneurship and innovation efforts. So it's always, this is the kind of thing when two institutions collaborate, the results you get is more than just two, but in fact, usually you multiply and not add. So that's one of the goals. The other one, which I think is very important, we try to establish a platform where we can facilitate the access of other universities ecosystems to the Brazilian market. And this can be very interesting because the same way when you facilitate people to come to our market, to actually talk to our investors, to our mentors, I'm sure this door, when you open it one side, it opens both sides. So the same way you can promote your own ecosystem for our companies to go to your places. And this is a great opportunity for that. And at the end, we also like to offer training and benchmark opportunities for the institutions, for the professionals that work in these institutions. We have learned here in Brazil, together with other agencies, that it's very important to title level, the knowledge that is involved, that is required for the type of things that we do. And instead of being reinventing the wheel, it's always better to learn from other people's failure or the other people's actions that actually work right. So that's the idea, to do some benchmarking and offer training for these professionals. And it's always each one of us, and we are growing, right? Each one of the members of the global partners always have some specificity, some things that they do that I'm sure is best than any other of the other members. So when you share that, you're benefiting the entire ecosystem. So how can you be the partners here? And you see here several universities. And I'd like to stress this fact that it's really a South-South interaction, which I think is good, right? And in a way, it's like you say, University of Florida, which is great to have here, is our south of the United States. So in a way, we are a South-South connection. And I think it's very important because this can really leverage our actions and actually making us in a way much more successful in our endeavors. And particularly now, together with the University of Florida, it's a way of connecting also. Besides saying the South-South interaction, it's a way of connecting South-North through University of Florida, which I think is a great opportunity. And I think it's also good for University of Florida to be in contact with our ecosystem. It's always a gain-gain business. Anyways, if you want to be part of a Global Partners, basically it's a form. It's very easy, just the address. Always starts with Unicamp BR because Brazil / Global Partners. Cannot be easier than that. So just write your name, email, your job, telephone, institution, and why you want to do it, why you want to be part of the Global Partners, and actually can always help us to direct better our activities. Okay, you can write in English, you can write in Spanish, Portuguese, well, whatever language, as long as you tell us which language it is, because we can find a way of translating it. Okay, thank you very much, and I would like to use this opportunity to also thank a lot Professor Eric and Professor Francisco for being with us, and I hope you have a great afternoon here with them. Okay, thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you. Well, okay.
Fernando, I said Francisco, sorry, I already corrected.
Yeah.
Sorry, Fernando.
All right, we'll continue here, and now I would like to start with, I'd like to invite to talk to us Professor Fernando, right, from Colombia, and then he will share with us his experience. For those that just entered online right now, this is being recorded, right, and we will have a moment to talk to Professor Fernando and to Professor Eric. By the end of the presentation, send your questions by the Q&A right in the bottom of your screen. Be welcome, Professor Fernando.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to share your presentation?
Sure, it will be, you see it?
Yes, now it's working.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Newton and Vanessa, for your support. This is for us a valuable opportunity to exchange our experience or to learn from each other as peers. This presentation is available also in this QR image, so you can have it anytime. And I want to tell you what is our experience from Cali, from Javeriana Cali. I'm beginning thinking as a student from our university. They have an idea and they have the intention to start their own company. Where should they go? That's the big initial question. If you are at Javeriana, we offer you several alternatives, as you can go to our in-house incubator that is named Campus Nova. You can participate on hackathons of open innovation experiences with Design Factory that adds services, or you can go to take courses on our entrepreneurship major and take elective courses with, like this one with Stanford. But for us, it doesn't stop to take the action for the students. It starts thinking, what do we need? What do we need to offer to our students? So for us, it will be to take a step back and analyze the situation. What is the context where we are moving and what we have to offer them? And for that, I will explain you shortly what is our national context, what will be our local and Javeriana context. For national context, I will use numbers from the study that we are one of the founders, founding group in Colombia that is called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, one of the main sources on entrepreneurship activity worldwide now. And you can have access to the last report here on this QR. And in this process, GEM, as I call it from now, GEM is a group of groups of countries, at least 54 countries in 2019, that decide to work together to apply and to obtain data that is comparable between the countries, so we can learn from each other's. And this is the 20th version that we have prepared. Now we are working on the 21st version. And as we understand the problem of entrepreneurship and try to understand what are the key elements, we see that it is a process. It is not just the result to have a company, it is a process. And in the process, we try to understand what are these thinking of the potential entrepreneur, what are their intentions, their aspirations, attitudes, key elements. And then we talk about the TEA. The TEA is the total entrepreneurial activity of a country. We count on them the national entrepreneur. There is somebody that decides in the last 12 months to invest money, to use his resources, his time, trying to establish his own company, and has not paid more than three months of salary in money or resources. So it's just starting. Those are the national entrepreneurs. From this moment, 3 months working on paying salaries, we begin to count till 3.5 years. That is the first, the second limit of our debt valley, as we say in GEM. So now this one, we call them new entrepreneurs. And from that, all companies, all entrepreneurs that says that they have a company with more than 3.5 years, they are owner managers for us. As you see, we ask, the main difference from GEM with other studies is that this one is based on the individual. We ask the person, in what stage of the process are you, and try to understand what are the key elements for them. And also, we want to understand the discontinuation rate of business. So with this study, we have a big picture of the whole process. In this picture, also, the picture will take this square, this blue square here on the right side, but we also try to understand what are the values around entrepreneurship. We know that Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, entrepreneurs were something that were attacked, not valued. So now here for us is, in Colombia at least, is very, very admired and want to be that. So we want to understand what are the individual attributes and what are the frameworks in terms of economics and social frameworks and entrepreneurial frameworks. So it's a quite vast study, quite interesting study. And we see that at the global scale, we have 12.6 people, adults, are doing or having a company with less than 3.5 years, so that it will be almost 1 of 6 people around the globe. That's a quite high numbers. 8.5 of them have a company more than 3.5 years. And what we want is these numbers to grow up every year. How we can do it, how we can help them, is the main question of GEM. So I'm moving fast, and we in Colombia have this pipeline as we call that. So the pipeline begins with this question: is it social? It is social recognized. It is good to be an entrepreneur. So 61% of the people says yes, it's good to be an entrepreneur in Colombia. They are recognized. They are something to. It's a role model. It's a model to replicate and all that. So is this quite accepted? Then we ask them, okay, tell me please, do you have the resources to do it? I mean, but not money, but in terms of leadership, in terms of your skills and that. So we have 58% of people say they can do it. They are prepared to do it. And then we ask them, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it in the next 3 years? And 42% of people says, yes, I will do it. You can come again in 3 years and you will see my company. So from this point, we make a big jump to the number of persons that have started their company. And they are 15% of Colombians. So we have a big drop, 27% in this point, so jumping from intention to action. And from then we have 7% of total Colombians that have a new company and with less than 3.5 years, and those that have a company for more than 3.5 years. So in the pipeline, we have a big jump here between the intention and the action, and we want to study there. We want to understand what is the problem. So that gives us GEM, this data and ideas where to dig in. And if we measure, we see the movement around the years in Colombia. In Colombia, we move around 20, 22, 23% of the whole population in terms of action. This is an outlier number that we have a trouble over there at that point. And if we compare Colombia with our people, United States, it's 70.8%. In Latin America, it will be 24%. So we are in the middle, saying that the quality of the entrepreneurship is also different between the countries. The number alone is not enough. We have to dig inside to understand more. And if we compare with Europe, it will be 9%, Asia 11%, and Africa 12%. So we can say that Colombia has a high number, 22%. And then we ask about the context. Is it easy? Is it more easy to start a company in the United States or in Colombia or in Brazil? And we have this number in National Expert Context Index, NCI, and NACI. Colombia is for 4.2. And then we find that in Latin America, Chile is quite high, it's 4.6. As Mexico. So in Colombia, we have a work to do. We are going up. We have to do our effort there. And the United States is quite the best context to do it. 5.3 in whole America. So as a context, we say we have limitations as Colombian, and we want to understand where are the limitations? What are the supports that we need to offer to our entrepreneurs? It is key to understand that finance will be a key element here. We are the 47th position between 54 countries. So we are in the bottom side of the list, very bottom. Finance is a problem, a big problem for us. And as you see, the blue line, the clear blue is the global average, and the dark blue is Colombia. So where we are strong is in education and at the university, we are in the 5th position, 5th of 54. But we are very, very low in terms of education on high school. So we have to work there harder. So education, university is okay. Infrastructures, we can get a phone line and all that quite easy. It's not a trouble. But the markets are a problem for us, how to get to the market and going easy to that market. So that's the key elements what GEM give us, what we have to do. We have to keep working on education, that's a good part, but all our initiatives of Campus Nova, that is our in-house incubator, we have to do a better job in finance, for example. That's a key element for us, and to access to the market. So what we recommend is that anybody that wants to get on entrepreneurship on their institutions, have a look on GEM. And if there is not a study for your country, contact me or contact anybody of GEM so they can start doing it in your country. So education is we have to improve. It is going down a little bit. We have to be more innovative, and that's something that is to improve. At the university level and at school level, we keep doing bad. That's the point. We have a law that says we have to do it, but we don't have the system working on to do it very well. And in terms of technology, we are doing quite bad too. You see the tendency following the years is going down. We have to work better here. But the university has this, at least in Colombia, this challenge to transfer all the technology and innovation to the companies who are not in a good position. Okay, that's national level. At local level, the city level, we have the Chamber of Commerce of the city. And the Chamber of Commerce of the city is concentrated on only high impact entrepreneurship. So they are the few of the few. They are very, very, very small group. So their main interest is only in high impact. So they live away the rest of the entrepreneurs. That's where the university and the whole system has to make a better effort. And then the Chamber of Commerce, they try all the time to get the companies to get formalized and to pay the Chamber of Commerce and taxes and all that. And in Colombia, for new companies, the nascent entrepreneurs rate of register at the Chamber of Commerce is no more than 20%. And if you take those companies that are between 3 months and 3.5 years, the percentage of registration is no more than 40%. So the numbers of the Chamber of Commerce are not usable to have an idea of the entrepreneurship activity in the country. GEM can do it, and the Chamber of Commerce is concentrated on high impact. So that's the situation in our local context. And then we're going to the university level. At the university level, we have to decide at some point, and everybody has to do it, we want to teach on entrepreneurship or we want to teach entrepreneurship, and to do it. That's the first idea. When you just finish your doctorate studies, you want to teach on entrepreneurship. But the idea is to mix it a little bit and try to understand where all this research can help us to identify where to work, what are the key dimensions that you have to improve. So we are not, in terms of focus on theories, that will be not also only to focus on economic area of entrepreneurship or in individual psychologist area, but more interaction in the interaction of the 3 levels. And so for us, it will be how to teach to begin your company, to do it entrepreneurship. And it was great because at Javeriana, we have this strategic planning. And in 2011, our provost and vice provost, they were interviewing regional top managers, and all of them tell the university, you have to prepare your students on entrepreneurship, period. That's the only way to do it and to improve the situation. So we get it in our vision on that time, and that helps us to grow. So that will help a lot for our institution. We begin to see the investment on our in-house incubator, 2008. And from then we move to a new type of incubator that we call Campus Nova in 2015. And we are doing better each year. As last year, there is a UB scale. UB is tries to make a comparison between incubators and their impact and all that. And we get recognized as one of the top 20 university business incubator in Javeriana, Cali, Colombia. So that gives us good news. We are doing well. We want to keep it doing. But this is part of the solution for us. This is just to support entrepreneurs, but to do that well, you have to go to also do the other three main activities of an university. That's services, but also teaching. And in teaching, we are working hard, have been doing for several years for our AACSB accreditation, just to understand how our courses will help to achieve this profile of our graduate students. As an example, this is one of our learning objective as a business school. That is the right side column. And what is the objectives of our course of entrepreneurship? This is the first one, 101. And there are a clear correspondence between the learning objectives of the school and the learning objectives of the course. So this is, we are making the whole system working together, trying to obtain this final dream to have in our graduates an entrepreneurial spirit, vivid and active. And all our courses, we use our in-house incubator as a lab, as you will do it in physics or chemistry. You have your lab. For us, our lab is Campus Nova, so it's hands-on. We have these innovation experiences with hackathons, open innovation, and all that going on with the Design Factory. We have also in almost all classes, we have entrepreneurs that are invited to the courses to inspire our students. And we have also final projects and all of them. So we try to make it very active. So that explains in some way the growing numbers that we have. In 2012, we have 1,000 students. Now we have the double, 2,000 students, 1,200. It's a big growth for us. It's almost as saying we are at 8,000 students institution. We can say now we have 1 of every 40 students are taking courses on entrepreneurship every semester. So it has now a big impact on the institution. And in terms of research, we are active too. We are on the second top level of the groups. One of the research are based on GEM that I explained you earlier. We do. And then we are working also on entrepreneurial intention, trying to evaluate how are the intentions of our students. And we have to compare ourselves with the Colombian average in terms of attitudes. We have 5.1 versus 5.8 in terms of Colombian attitudes, and how the context of the university helps you. 4.2 is international average. In Colombia will be 5.4, and we are 5.3. So we are having a clear idea where we have to move. And for our graduate students, we are working with EMP. That's quite interesting initiative. This is from Eckhart College from Florida. And they have a nice instrument that they developed. And we apply that for our last 8 cohorts of our MBA students and 750 local entrepreneurs. So that helped us identify what are the dimensions that we want to work with them. They are a scale of personality scales and skill scales that we want to check. and where they are comparing to the average of entrepreneurs and managers, general managers. So in each scale, you can compare yourself and identify which of these 14 scales you have to work on. So for us, is how to use research to help doing better our work of developing this entrepreneurial spirit and inspiring this culture, entrepreneurial culture that we're going to have in our students and our institution. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I will be here.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you very much. Again, if you have any questions, please write on the Q&A. You can chat on the chat, but the questions, lead them to the Q&A so that we can address them for Fernando and for Professor Eric later on, right? And by the way, I'd like now to invite to be with us Professor Eric Sanders, that he is from the Florida University. And after Professor Eric talks, then we'll talk all together, Fernando, Eric, Newton, and then Eric, are you with us? Yes, yes, okay. You now, would you like to try your be welcome first?
Sure. I will
would you like to try your presentation? Yeah,
I will. Before I do, just leave that up because I want everybody. I'm sorry. Can you go back to your slide there?
My slider. Okay,
I want everybody to see how different I look now than I did back then.
Okay, but I believe
right here. This is what entrepreneurship training does to you. All right, listen. It's truly a pleasure to be here. Let me share my screen. Let's see, Vanessa. I think you need to stop yours. Let me bring mine up real quick, if I could. Okay, and hopefully this will work where everybody can see my screen. Vanessa, can you see it?
Yes, we can. That's okay.
Well, listen, it really is a pleasure to be here. I very much appreciate this. It was fascinating, actually, for me to hear Professor Fernandez because we didn't coordinate at all before this. I think we met like half an hour ago. But what's really interesting to me is a lot of what Professor Fernando had to say in terms of kind of intention and focusing on, entrepreneurship versus the entrepreneurial thought process, how to integrate this within the university structure, very much mirrors my experiences and the experiences that we've had here. So I wanted to tell you a little, and I will follow also Professor Fernando's kind of structure of speaking, internationally and then nationally, and then maybe at the state level. So we have 50 states in the United States. I'm in Florida, obviously, and then maybe more locally and down into what we're doing. I'll speak mostly about some programs across the University of Florida focused on, student entrepreneurship programs. But I think you really have to look at how you integrate these into the technology commercialization operations, the research agenda for the university, and the educational mission of the university. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to truly be successful in this, I think you have to demonstrate that it really supports the, kind of the core missions of the university, and also supports, the not only the national level, but the state level, the economic development structure, and that's essentially what drives many of our legislators. And I suspect it's the same in many other countries. I've been very blessed in that I've been able to give these kinds of talks in a number of countries. And, so I always learn something, but, in every country I'm in, and I think I've been on every continent multiple times. And you learn, one of the things that you learn is that at the end of the day, legislative bodies in different countries, they're looking at many different things, obviously, but one of the things they're looking at is return on investment of their investment in the universities, and what does that do for their local or regional or state or national economy. So I'll speak a little to that. So let me, if I could, launch into this. And so really, let me give you first a very kind of quick overview of the University of Florida. We are a major comprehensive land-grant research university. And so if you look across the United States, there are about 4,600 universities and colleges. And I'll show you some data on that in a few seconds. But we're one of the very, very few. There's only about 6 out of those 4,600 that have every discipline on a single campus. And so we have on our campus here in Florida, in Central Florida, we have engineering and medicine and liberal arts and sciences, and law and food and agricultural sciences and business, and just go down the list. And that really is very advantageous when you think about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial programs. We have about 4,000 faculty. I need to update the slide. We have almost 57,000 students now, large number of colleges and research and education centers and so on. Annually, we do about 5,000 proposals. We submit about 5,000, about half of those are awarded. And so on an annual basis, we do a little over $900 million in research, with about 100 million of that coming from industry. And our drive is to get to $1 billion every year in research. So if you think about that, the number of proposals, if you look at business days, it means we submit a research proposal about every 15 or 20 minutes as a university. So it is a machine, right? And so that's very advantageous, because when you start thinking about that and the expectation of those that, again, are funding us and the American people, they expect to see economic opportunity come from that. And I'll speak to that a little more as we go through. In the last year or so, we just had our newest numbers. We had almost 400 inventions that came from that. And at the end of the day, inventions are good, but what really matters, I think, is licensing. So we have a very strong technology licensing and commercialization office here. And so we did 132 technology licenses last year. And that's a little high for us, but we're typically running 90 to 120 licenses every year. We also did 15 to 20 spin-off companies every year. From the technology that the faculty are developing. In addition to that, we have very strong cross-campus entrepreneurship programs that I'll address. And from that, we spin off typically close to 20 student spin-off companies annually. And so, if you look at these, and by the way, in all of these spin-off companies, we don't count companies that are consulting companies where a faculty member or student decides they want to start. Nothing against that. I mean, those are very, very valuable, to the university, the faculty member, and the economy. But we count these only on student spin-off companies that aren't consulting type companies, where they actually are basing it on a technology, as well as the faculty spin-offs. And we've been very blessed that we've had some success in the past. Gatorade, which is the #1 sports drink in the world, was created here at the University of Florida. For many years, the leading glaucoma drug, TruSop, was developed here, as well as the leading termite trap. And so we have, at any given time, typically 120 to 140 technologies that are in the marketplace that are significant revenue producing. And so, this is, I would love to say it all happened very quickly, but it didn't. It started really back in the 60s with Gatorade, and we've been able to build up from there. So that gives you kind of a snapshot of the university itself. One other thing, some of these faculty spin-off companies and even the student spin-offs have become very successful. So we have an example. Last year, we sold one of our spin-off companies from the faculty was acquired for $1.7 billion. We have another company that is actually run by one of our women entrepreneurs in the area, and they have just raised, I think they're at about almost $800 million. It's a gene therapy company. And so, some of these can be very significant. Even some of the student companies, we just had one of our student companies that was spun out actually in the last year, named to the Fast Company Most Innovative Companies finalist list, another one to the Forbes finalist list. And so it's amazing what these student entrepreneurs can do once they kind of get the bug and they get the feet underneath them. A little in terms of the numbers. So, everybody has their rankings. We do, just like everybody else. And I won't walk you through all of these. I think some of the things we're most proud of, as a university, probably or without a doubt, the most recognized ranking is U.S. News and World Report. So we were very fortunate. Just actually this week, it broke that we are now number 6 in terms of public universities in the country. That's a tough list to get into. So, we've worked our way through that. It's testament to the faculty and the students. And then a number of surveys, have recognized what we're doing in technology, commercialization, and entrepreneurship. And so, just recently, the George Bush Institute, George W. Bush is one of our former presidents, and the institute there recognized the University of Florida as the #1 university in terms of public university in terms of innovation, impact, and productivity. And then some of the rest you can see on there. So that helps because we have, certainly a kind of a breadth of technology across the different operating units. The College of Medicine and our Health Science Center obviously is a big producer, as is the College of Engineering. In engineering, we produce technologies at about 3 times the national average per research dollar, and we produce spin-off companies at about 4 times it's actually the international average. It's through a group called AUTUM. You may be familiar, Association of University Tech Managers. And so that helps not only with recognition, but frankly, guidance as to things we're doing right and wrong. We have 2 incubators in town that are university owned. We actually have 4 in town, but 2 of these are university owned. And so our biotech incubator, about 35,000 square feet, large and small animal facilities and so on. And the International Business Incubator Association just recognized that a couple of months ago as a #1 incubator in the world. And this is the 3rd time in this decade that we've been able to garner that award. No other university, no other group has ever won it more than twice. And so, so that just means we have to stay ahead of the pack, which is, it just makes it tougher. And then our innovation hub, it's about 90,000 square feet, which I just did the math. It's, I think, about 8,300 square meters. And again, that has space for a lot of service providers. So these are 2 great assets in town that serve not only our faculty, but our students. So we have dedicated space in these for student startups. I know we had a discussion this morning that was going to maybe lead into some further discussion this afternoon about space, dedicated space. And so I'm happy to talk about that if it makes sense when the time comes. So these are some of our assets to basically be able to take not only our faculty advances, but also, serve our student entrepreneurs. So if I go to the fundamental question of, are we teaching entrepreneurship? Are we teaching entrepreneurial thinking? My answer is yes. So we're teaching both. Now, the reality is that most of the students that come into the University of Florida will not be entrepreneurs. And based on my experience, I've got some background as an entrepreneur myself, a number of companies and a couple of venture capital firms and now in the university or whatever. My experience is most students and faculty should not be entrepreneurs. They don't have the stomach for it or whatever you want to call it. Now, when I speak entrepreneurs, I speak mostly about kind of the higher risk tech entrepreneurs, okay? And so I am addressing a subset of that. But I'm firmly convinced that an entrepreneurial mindset can serve anyone who comes out of at least our university, wherever they decide to go. And so I wanted to pull some information together that said, okay, why should we be doing this? Why should we be dedicating resources to teaching this entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship? And so here's 2 studies, one from the World Economic Forum. So every 5 years, they talk about kind of the top skills that professionals will need to succeed. And what I want you to look at here, and the second one is from the IBM Institute for Business Value. So they do a skills survey every 2 years. This is the most recent from 2018. Look in this, if you will, at the number of what's been termed soft skills versus, the more technical skills. And these are 2 completely different groups, and there's many, many other surveys from industry that speak to this as well. So the challenge for many of our students, especially in the more technical disciplines, engineering, and in some of the liberal arts and sciences, chemistry, physics, is they get steeped in and significant training in technical skills, but not the same level of training in the soft skills. So this is really fundamental to what we're trying to do, that's driving and it's motivating what we're doing in entrepreneurship and innovation training. So there's 2 surveys. Let me share one more with you. So this is an interesting combination of 2 different surveys. One was a survey of employers that asked them to essentially rate their new hires, so our recent grads, on how prepared they were for the workforce in various categories. So they actually went to the employers and said, okay, what's the most important thing to you? And you see in the column here to the left under competency, You know, these are the things that they thought were very important to them as a business and to the future of their new employees. And so they went to the employees and said, okay, how, you know, do you think the students that we graduate, the new employees that you hire, are proficient in this? Now, if you look at the competency, there's only one really that is technically focused, and that's digital technology, right? Then they asked the students, do you consider yourself technically proficient? And what's really interesting as you go through this is that there's only one category where the employers felt the students were more prepared than the students felt they were. So in general, the students feel that they're much better in some of the soft skills, collaborating, working in teams, you know, the entrepreneurial mindset, communicating, persuasive communications, than the employers felt they were. And we hear this over and over and over again. So what's interesting is, as we prepare our students through the Innovation Institute and a sister institute that I'll speak of called the Leadership Institute, what you see is this, the employers constantly come back and they look for our students. They come specifically, ask for students that have been in the Innovation Institute, not because they want to hire entrepreneurs. These are large defense contractors, as an example. They hire them because they have a different way of thinking, and it puts them in a better position in some of these skill sets. The other thing, and this is one other, this is the Final I Promise You survey that we reference regularly. This is from the National Academy of Engineering. And so there was a study that they commissioned called the Engineer of 2020, and it asked many things, but one of the things that it asked is, okay, what's going to differentiate, in this case, it's engineering leaders that are coming out in the year 2020 versus all of their peers. In other words, what's going to enable them to succeed? And so I've taken the liberty of kind of boiling down a lot of the study. If you haven't read this study or this report, I really urge you to read it. But take a look at these skills. Strong analytical skills. Well, if you're in a good engineering or technical program in a university, you're going to get strong analytical skills. But in most universities, they don't focus on these other skills, right? So really, this set of studies and many others were motivation to us for setting up the programs that we did in entrepreneurship and innovation. One last thing. So with our legislators, many times you can send them full reports loaded with data and they're never going to get it. Sometimes they just get a picture, right? So this is a picture of the state of Florida that we show to our state legislators. And we say, this is essentially a picture that was taken from the International Space Station of the state of Florida at night, okay? And so you can see the light patterns here. You can see the coast of the state of Florida. And the light patterns you can take as proxies or proxy for technological advancements of different parts of the state, right? So you see essentially the most economically advanced parts of the state in these light patterns. And so one of the things that, as I present to our legislators, I ask is, okay, what if we could run this really interesting experiment? And the experiment is that if we were to take half the state of Florida, we go back, let's say 80 years, and we take half the state of Florida and we just stop technology development. What does that do to the economy, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the most powerful argument we can make for the programs that we're putting in place in entrepreneurship and innovation. Because the argument from the entrepreneurship and innovation programs is this is how we're going to translate, this is one avenue we're going to translate advances in the university to impact the economy. So I say, okay, I wonder what that looks like. Let me show you what that might look like. Okay, now this is not photoshopped. This is not the state of Florida anymore. This is the Korean Peninsula. So if you think about this, right, the Korean Peninsula, this is one nation, one culture, back, you know, all the way to 1945. So within a generation, you can see the impact of, you know, dividing that peninsula into two different countries, two different cultures, right? So what you see here on the bottom right portion is South Korea. This vast ocean that you see out here, that's North Korea, right? So this is one generation of essentially retarding technology advances. This is, if you have something similar for your legislators, this is more powerful than any report you will ever send them, because it's a
I have to say, wow.
Yeah, yeah. This little fishing boat out in the middle of the ocean, That's Pyongyang. That's the capital. Okay. So again, I think the message I'm trying to give is, as you speak to your various constituents, you know, those that you need to help support your program, really you need to speak to what matters to them. And in this case, our Florida legislators, this is what matters. Okay, so let me now come down to the university level. We're very blessed in that in the University of Florida with 57,000 students, about 6,000 of our students are taking entrepreneurship courses, formal courses across the university. And these are delivered in 3 major programs. So we have a Center for Entrepreneurship that's in the business school. They have about 3,000 students. We have an Innovation Academy. Now, this is an interesting concept because I've not seen it at the universities. This is run out of the provost's office. And so they have students that they take from 32 different majors across campus and put them through a 4-year innovation minor through this Innovation Academy. And then the Engineering Innovation Institute that I'm fortunate enough to lead is really focused on the College of Engineering. And so we have about 2,200 students that are taking our coursework, as well as about another 1,500 that are taking some other teaching and experiential materials that I'll share with you in a second here. So this gives you a picture across the University of Florida. And I've looked at and spoken with representatives of different, you know, entrepreneurship and innovation programs, I see this over and over, you know, where you have a program that was usually started in a college of business, kind of a spin-off from that. And then if the university got very risky, they would start something in engineering. And usually that was about it. And so this has been a really interesting experiment. I think a successful experiment to say, hey, can we do this same kind of thing, do a 3rd one in there and really have them all work together? And I think it's doing very well. I'm going to move along a little more quickly. Let me skip some of this because again, I want to leave, you know, a significant amount of time for discussion. So within, I'll now go even further down into the College of Engineering. Within our College of Engineering, this is the student that we hope to produce. This isn't something I've just thrown on this slide. If you come and by the way, everybody on the call, we invite you to come visit us in Florida. We are not all dying of COVID, you know, despite what you see in the news. And don't come in the middle of summer because it's way too hot. But beyond that, come see us. And as you walk across our College of Engineering, we have a very large college, 10,000 students, one of the largest in the country. You'll see this graphic everywhere. And the reason is because we firmly believe that what we call the new engineer really has got to be the engineer that goes beyond the technical depth in order to succeed. All right, so we focus on providing leadership skills and innovation skills and getting to understand how do you really work in an interdisciplinary research environment. And when we say interdisciplinary, we don't mean, okay, one engineer, a mechanical engineer talks to a material science engineer. We talk about how do you work with students from the College of Journalism, College of Business, and College of the Arts, and Medicine, and so on. So I'll give you some examples about how we do it. Very importantly, we do have faculty buy-in to this. So these are some of our more successful and innovative faculty. And so we've assembled this Faculty Innovation Council to really help guide us on the new programs that we're putting in place. And believe me, they're not easy on us, and they shouldn't be. Right? They should vet every program that we have because a lot of the things that we talk about here, and I won't go through the bullets, really impacts, you know, the things that the faculty are experiencing. Now, down into the student programs, let me do a quick time check. I'm getting there, I'm almost done. Going into the student programs, we have taught an entrepreneurship class here since 2003, and that is because in 2003, I was working in another program here in the college, and I kept bothering the dean and saying, we need an entrepreneurship program in engineering. We need one, we need one. So finally, he said, look, Eric, fine. Well, you can start an entrepreneurship class, but you have to teach it, and I don't ever want to hear about it again. I said, good, that's a deal. That's entrepreneurial. So in 2003, we started our first class. And then in 2010, we started our Innovation Institute. And we really wanted to, when we start that, take maybe a different mindset in terms of what we were going to develop from a curricular basis than I think some other universities had done. We started out saying, okay, what are the key skills that the students really need that aren't being provided now? If we're going to teach them about an entrepreneurial mindset. And so we went out, I literally spoke with 132, I think it was, leaders of engineering leadership development programs in companies. We went to Florida Engineers Society, National Academy of Engineering. So I went down the list, I don't know how many startup companies. And these are the skills essentially that resonated with all. These are the ones we kept hearing over and over and over again, okay? So we said, okay, if that's the skills, then let's build what we're producing from those skills. Let's not build it the other way around. Let's not just start an entrepreneurship course because it's the thing to do, right? So we took these skills and we literally turned them into student learning outcomes for the courses. But the other thing we did was we created teaching modules. So these are 1 or 2 hour modules that we in our institute, our faculty in the institute, will develop and deliver for other faculty within, whether it's the College of Engineering or beyond. So for instance, if there's somebody in Thermo that's teaching Thermo 2 to the undergrad students, or who's teaching a graduate class, and they're forming teams, and they really need to understand team dynamics and development, we've developed these teaching modules. We deliver everything. It's totally turnkey. We have the faculty, we have the PowerPoint, the pre and post assessment, the case studies, and so on. And it's a service to the faculty. And so it's a way to essentially start to ingrain the entrepreneurial thought process into the core curriculum of the college. And so we have about 1,500 to 2,000 students that take these modules every year. Additionally, we created a series of joint curriculum with an Engineering Leadership Institute. And so we wanted to do this because, as we went through kind of the skill sets, we learned some important things, which were engineering, things like leadership. It's tough to divorce entrepreneurial thinking and innovation from concepts of leadership. And so we literally developed each one of these are courses that we have, and these are very significant courses. These are 3-credit courses with few exceptions. So they're very significant in terms of their depth. We offer these to the undergrad and grad population, as well as working professionals. So we offer almost all of these fully online, and we have students across the world as well. And so from that joint curriculum, we've seen pretty significant growth. So in 2010, essentially, I was begging 50 students to be in an entrepreneurship class. To this last year, if you look at this joint curriculum that we had about 2,200 students taking the curriculum, and that's on top of the 1,500 students that are taking the modules. The dip that you see actually in the middle years here in 15 and 16, you see it on both sides, the leadership and innovation. That was not driven by demand. It was actually driven by capacity. So our instructors were completely loaded up on what they could teach, and I had to go get some more instructors. All of our instructors, there's many things that I want in life. One of the things I demand in life is all of our instructors have to have real world experience, right? And what I used to tell people was they all have had to have missed payroll at some point in their life, because most entrepreneurs are going to be in a situation they've missed payroll. In all of these courses, we also bring in 40 to 50, sometimes 60 outside speakers every semester. And these are typically chief technology officer or above in large companies, or founders or CEOs of startup companies or small growing companies. And so virtually every week we will have 3 or 4 outside speakers, because that adds real context to what we're trying to teach in the class. Almost at the end, we do have experiential programs as well, because we're big believers in learning by doing. So we have a very small subset of our students, notionally much less than 5% of our population, and we put them in a 2-semester, very intense experiential program. They don't get credit for this. They work in multidisciplinary teams. We do this with the College of Arts, College of Business, College of Ag and Life Sciences, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and of course, College of Engineering. We're now bringing health sciences into this as well. And it culminates in a Silicon Valley experience where they go out there with me for a week, and we basically go visit a lot of our alums who are thrilled to meet these students. We just closed a $50 million investment that was led by one of our alums in some of our artificial intelligence programs here. And to a great degree, that was seeded by the students that went out there and presented to that group every year. Last slide. So part of what we wanted to do is early on is build what we call a global innovation network. Right? And we wanted to really focus on a relatively small number of universities. So, you know, we, like everybody else, you have these MOUs with universities and you have this big signing ceremony, everybody gets all, you know, excited, and then nothing happens, right? So yeah, pictures, right? Lots of pictures. And so what we wanted to do is essentially try something new, which is say, okay, we want a few universities, right? We want at least one in every continent, and really focus on active partnerships. And so you can see that the three most active that we have at the bottom here: Unicamp in Brazil, Technion in Israel, and then RWTH Aachen in Germany. And we're really focused on programs that have very strong foci on their technical programs, engineering mostly, and their innovation programs, right? And so we've looked at different ways we could do this. Now, I will end with this, and I don't say anything I don't mean. We couldn't have found a better partner than Unicamp. We could not have found a better partner than Unicamp. We have had some great collaborations. We've had 5 years of an MOU with them. Mariana's probably laughing on the other end because, yes, I promise you I'm going to get the International Center to get that second MOU to you. I don't even care about the MOU, right? But some people do. But what's really matters is we've had the opportunity to impact not only the students at Unicamp, but certainly the students at the University of Florida as well. So Mariana and some others have come here over the years, really helped us to understand, you know, the challenge that we have, and some of our students have, in selling into the context of a different country. You know, developing a country, selling into the United States is so much different than selling almost anywhere else in the world, right? And so that's part of, I think, what, you know, as Professor Fernando talked about, you know, the GEM monitor in different countries, right? We, as the United States, I mean, think about this. We weren't even a real country 230 years ago, right? We had a bunch of people that came over here and just took risks and got kicked out of every good country there was. And that's kind of in our DNA. And so, you know, having these global partners is really just a blessing for us. I'm going to end there and stop sharing my screen. If you want more information, certainly you're free to contact me. The website link is at the bottom here. And I'm happy to, I think, Vanessa, you should have my slides. So I'm happy if anybody wants any of the slides, I'm happy for you to share those. Let me stop there.
I got them. Thank you very much. We're going to edit the videos and then send the slides and so on. So I guess that we can spread a bit more the discussion with people that could not be with us today in the afternoon. I guess that was really rich. Mariana is with us as well. Mari, would you like to join us? Let's chat a little bit. We had a very interesting discussion up to now. And I would like to start with a question that Rogers Rocha sent to us, right? And in fact, it starts with a myth, right? We saw in Professor Eric's presentation that 10% of investment at the university, I guess 1 in 9, right, come from industry, the investment in research. And in fact, lots of people here in Brazil say that there is no investment from government. And what calls to our attention is that in São Paulo state, we have the same rate, right? 10% of investment in research comes from industry, and the rest is from, well, a bit divided. So I would like you guys to talk a little bit about that. I'm pretty much sure Professor Newton also has a word on that. Can you comment on that? What is the importance of, for example, government investing as well? And what is the difference from the investment from the industry in research and the investment of the companies in research? As the question was to Professor Eric, would you mind starting a little,
Sure.
talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to. So if you look at the national data in the United States, approximately 8 to 12% of most universities' funding comes from industry. Okay, now so it's relatively small. If you go across kind of the funding scheme of almost all major research universities, government is tops. It's typically 70% plus, and then you have some from industry and foundations in the state and so on and so on. And then even within the government, most of it is a few agencies: National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, NASA. Those are kind of the big hitters. What's interesting is, as you look at kind of government funding versus industry funding, government funding is really, they're looking at the fundamental research and saying, okay, we really, we want to invest in areas where we can advance key fundamental science areas. Okay, and they do that because, frankly, if you look at the United States before World War II, there was almost no investment in university research because from an individual company perspective, their required return on investment and what they owe to if they're a big company, to their shareholders, doesn't really allow them to take this kind of significant risk that they would with university early stage research. So, but when they do invest, they want essentially, they want to understand the fundamental knowledge advancements, and they want to have access to any technology advancements, obviously, that would come from that. And so that's why linking this to the technology commercialization operation is critical. I'll finish with this. Back in, I think it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a technology transfer operation, which was horrible, horrible. And it was horrible because it was impossible to get a deal done. And we actually saw our research funding go down from industry significantly because industry is saying, why do I want to put my money there if I can't access the advances from the back end, from the commercialization on? Let me stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. Newton, would you like to comment on that? Maybe Fernando would comment on that. What is the picture on Colombia as well? Because this is very common in Brazil. People say, oh, industry, why would the government invest in research? Or we need more industry, or we need more government. I guess there is a balance and a difference in the investment from the government and the investment of industry. Both are very important. Would you mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because most people end up thinking here in Brazil that this is the problem. Okay, here industry does not invest in universities, and that's not real. So when you look at the real data for at least for the universities of the state of São Paulo, and actually, like you mentioned, Eric, the average in the United States is 8 to 12%, but the average is like 9 or 8 or something like that. It's very few universities, like 5 or 6 that actually have larger numbers. And for the state of São Paulo, it's about 10%. So we have industry actually here with the same rate. And you mentioned, I think I agree with you, that most of the demands from the industry is actually for some real final applied or whatever type of development from the university, even though most of these type of developments need a lot of basic research. But I think the basic difference actually, and I would like to hear your comments about this, and also Fernando, because I'm very curious about Colombia, also about what type of numbers they have, is that the culture of innovation is definitely present in the companies themselves. So the companies have their people doing research and they do innovation, and these are the people that actually talk to the universities. And I don't think the picture is the same here, because when we look at the other number, which is how much of the GDP of Brazil is invested, the percentage of that is invested actually in the research and development, that we may connect research development with innovation. Okay, so we make this assumption. The average of the OECD countries is about 2 times of the GDP from companies are invested in research development and government 1 time. And Brazil is like 1 to 1. So clearly there's much less investment on innovation, research and development in industry here. Therefore, the outcome from these collaborations is a bit smaller because still the companies here in Brazil are expecting the innovation, basically all of it, to come from the university. And as we know, this is very different. Usually, most of it comes from the industry. The university only helps leveraging it. So that's my opinion, and I'd like to hear Fernando and Eric about this.
Fernando, would you like to give a picture in Colombia, how it goes?
We are far behind you. in terms of Brazil and United States. And but in our experience, we see in Colombia a very renowned university that is Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. I mean, they can capture 80% of the resources that companies put on research. And then there is
80.
Yes, very, very high. And then there is the Medellin, which is the second city of the country, where there is a quite nice network of companies, big companies in the city, and they are quite innovative. And they found something that is called Route N in Medellin. That is called an innovation center based on the public state university, Universidad de Antioquia. So those are the main examples of investment, companies' investment and innovation. In my region, this is more oriented from Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has identified clusters that they want to push ahead, and the companies are coming to these clusters. So it's a quite different process. But the clusters, this initiative is doing good results. They are moving ahead. But it's not a wide initiative of companies to invest in the university research. Even in Colombia, we have a tax incentive. If all the companies that invest in research, they get tax reduction, very high tax reduction, but they are not taking profit of it. So we expect moving ahead in next years.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to comment further, Eric?
Just one thing. I mean, I think a lot of industries, take the pharmaceutical industry, for example. You know, if you go back the last couple of years, their pipeline is drying up. And I think a big part of that is because over the years of the last decade, they haven't invested in universities, because universities are the ones putting out and kind of doing the fundamental research on what will ultimately be drug candidates. And so, you know, I think Professor Newton said something really important, which is, at the end of the day, you know, it's about researcher to researcher interactions. So in companies to universities, you know, it's not about an edict from up high that says, okay, we're going to dedicate X amount. You know, it really is the scientists and the universities understanding, you know, keeping up with the literature, understanding what the latest advancements are and where the really good work is being done. And unfortunately, that puts a lot of universities, you know, we're competing with each other. We just are in different fields. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I have a question for that as well. In fact, because here in Campinas, we're always discussing, because we're quite close to São Paulo, right? And then we have this, all right, the companies we help create, are they going to São Paulo, or even the large companies, are they going to invest in universities in São Paulo and not in Campinas? Of course, Unicamp is a strong university in research. Well, companies are looking for our students and so on. But we always have this thought, all right, what is the benefit of being next to São Paulo and so on? And I saw in your presentation, you mentioned the Silicon Valley. I would like to hear, what is your relationship to that? If your students, after they start their companies, they are like, okay, I want to move to the next coast, or if you can keep them and keep their impact. Today in the morning, I was talking to Mariana, in fact, during lunchtime, and she was telling us, Professor Newton doesn't know about it, we're around 900, over 900 alumni companies now. Right, so we're looking forward to 1,000.
He already knows. I told him.
You told him as well. Okay. Okay, right. But we're very proud that they are sticking around. What about with you in Florida? How is this relationship? If they are like really looking forward, moving to Silicon Valley, or if you can keep them, or how is this relationship?
Yeah, so I'll give you two answers. One is the answer that I would give in my former position, which I used to be in venture capital, and I was focused on university spin-off companies. My answer was really simple. The company should be in the place where it gives it the optimal chance for success, period. Okay? So that would not be the legislative answer, right? That would, so the reality is we're somewhat blessed. I mean, the University of Florida is a very large university. We're the flagship university for the state of Florida. The state of Florida is the third largest state in the country by population. People don't realize that. We have 22 million residents. We're right behind California and Texas. And so we have a lot of economic opportunity in the state for our spin-off companies. So if you look at the numbers, about a third of them, after 5 years of our spin-off companies, are in the Gainesville region. About a third of them are not in the Gainesville region, but they're kind of on the East Coast, and then about a third go out toward the West Coast, including Silicon Valley and that type of thing, right? And there's various reasons for doing that. I mean, there's no environment like Silicon Valley. There still isn't. I don't know that there ever will be. But if you look at actually what's happening recently now, especially with the pandemic and companies figuring out that, guess what, we can have employees work at distance, there's a lot of people moving out of the Valley right now. In fact, one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at, can we take some of our co-working space facilities and set those up specifically for virtual internships and virtual employment. So you have the opportunity to work in Gainesville, low cost of living, good climate. I guarantee it's not going to snow here. And, you know, work for companies, yep, surfing and everything else, you know, and work for companies, you know, that are out in the Valley. So I think it's difficult because legislatively, they do want to see companies stay in the area, and the local chamber wants to see companies stay in the area, but it is a numbers game. I mean, if we're producing, you know, 20 or 30 spin-off companies every year, the reality is some of them are going to stay and some of them are not, and some should not. If they have a better chance to, you know, to build their company. And again, when I was in venture, I wanted that company right down the street from me, so that when things go wrong, I had the chance to kind of, you know, go in there and really, you know, work with the management team and see what was really happening.
Thank you. Fernando, do you have such a situation there with you, like a little competition or a place that where the companies want to move to?
Our cases, our successful cases in Javeriana, they are quite successful, winning concursos, winning these initiatives, and they are very successful. And they still here in Cali at the point. So Cali is a nice low-cost city compared to Bogota, compared to Medellin, and we have quite good infrastructure to move resources and to move products so it is not as expensive, it is well connected, and we have here a strong local industries and food industry and all others, so they can help these entrepreneurs to succeed. So for the point is they stay here, they don't move to Bogota, even if Bogota is a market that is 6 times the market in Cali, but they have this option to connect with Bogota easy by moving.
Good. Okay, let's see how the world will turn after the pandemic. Oh, Newton would like to comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, I like this, that the companies should be where it's best for them to be. I totally agree. But it's always good to see some data, because I mean, the headquarters of the companies, these alumni companies we're talking about, 62% of them are in the metropolitan area of Campinas. So for some reason, they want to be here. They may have like overseas offices and everything, but they want to be here. And one of the reasons, perhaps one of them, not the, is because they basically established here, they like to be here. And I think this is simple. The other one is actually, there's a lot of interest for recruiting more students from the university. Now, with this idea now of being able, in this virtual work now, like home offices and things like that, perhaps may change a little bit the scenario, but that may be good for anywhere, because you can be here with your headquarters and be actually in the Silicon Valley at the same time, or be in Florida or Colombia. So there is something that makes them staying around. So, and there is like an attractor that is, in our case, caused by the university. And obviously, the cost of living in Campinas is by far better than São Paulo. And the other thing is, we are not small enough that there's nothing for us to do here, but we're not big as São Paulo, that is really diverse. So there's some right ratios or size of cities that actually focus a bit more and gives more density for the innovation endeavor. And then I think there's something also to do with this, more than only, you know, a bigger financial center or whatever. I mean, I think there's some other things that are considered. And I always think of Cambridge when I think about this. It's very similar. It's a small city, about 100 kilometers or 60 miles from London, and London by far is bigger. It has many more opportunities than Cambridge, but nevertheless, the companies say that. So, just
I like when they stay here. Period.
Hey, Vanessa, could I just add another thing to that? Because I think there's a really important point in here. You know, so in the United States, we do something, it's horrible, it's called smokestack chasing, which means a company like Amazon says, guess what, we're opening a second headquarters. And all of a sudden, every state starts throwing tax credits and money and everything else at them. And what you find is that if you ask the companies and they're honest, what's the number one thing that they need? It's not the credits and everything, it's access to a pipeline of talent. That's what they need, right? And so we're better than a good sized university to get that talent, right? And the fact that it's, I think we in Gainesville, so our population here in the region is about 250,000. So we're not large, but we're not tiny either or whatever. The good quality of life allows these companies to retain the talent. So the pipeline of talent, the relationship with the university to establish that type of pipeline of talent. I mean, honestly, a lot of the capstone programs that industry funds has nothing to do with the technology. It has to do with access to really smart students, right? And you want to get in their front of mind. I have dealt with so many companies, and one thing no company has ever done has come to me and said, Eric, I would like your bottom 25% of students. Give me them, right? I want your worst students. Everybody wants the best students. And so the reality is if you do have presence where you can stay front of mind of the students and the faculty, that's an incredible advantage to the companies in terms of their future workforce. And then if you have a good quality of life, that's an incredible advantage in terms of retention of that workforce.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk about spin-off companies. Eric talked a little bit about that, right? Saying that they are not consultancy companies, right? Although those are important as well. I'd like to make two questions. First, are all of those intellectual property based on intellectual property of the university? And the second question is, if you already invest on those companies, that means if the university has equity on those, that's something we would like to talk in another webinar with the global partners, because we're studying that and settling that for Unicamp as well. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I mean, if you look at the ones that come out of the licensing office, yeah, they're all based on intellectual property that comes out of the university. Now, what's interesting is if you look in our incubators, about half the companies are actually come from the university. The other half come to the region because, again, this issue of quality of life, access to talent, and also, frankly, access to the infrastructure, the equipment, the labs, the faculty within the university, okay? Most of the student startup companies are not based on a university technology, okay? And so, I mean, it's interesting because at the end of the day, theirs is usually, you know, just kind of a, it's an execution play. What we in venture used to call an execution play. You have an idea, it's a really good idea, maybe a technology behind it. You may or may not be able to protect that technology. And it's just a matter of executing better than anybody else, you know, and hitting the market. So you see a lot of the student companies that'll kind of along that vein. And I think there's advantages to both. I mean, frankly, with the, you know, the intellectual property that the university protects and then licenses it out. Again, we did 132 licenses last year, and so we do 100 licenses plus every year. That that gives you some kind of track record and experience, and hopefully some momentum to do things fast. Not always, believe me, not always, but most of the time, right? But on the other hand, if you don't have IP you're worried about, you're just going, and then you have a bunch of caffeine loaded up students that are working a week at a time without breathing or sleeping, and it's just go time, right? So I think there's advantages to both, and we have a combination of both.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. What about the equity?
Right. Yeah, we take
diversity.
equity in almost all the startup companies that we have. Now we do have, one of the knocks on U.S. universities has been, and this is since I've been in this business of 30 plus years, is okay, the equity is too high, the royalty rate is too high. What do you mean non-dilutive? Or the newest term is delayed dilution, which sounds a lot like non-dilution to me. And so we do take equity in the companies. And we do have the possibility to essentially trade off royalty rate for the equity position and those types of things. Again, I've been on the other side where I've been the founder of the startup licensing technology at the university. I've been in the venture fund that's funding the startup, and so one can argue back and forth. But at the end of the day, I think the thought process that matters is you have to put the company in a position so any investment they can get or other money that they can harvest from early sales really can't go to it shouldn't go to the university. Let me put it that way. Because you're just starving, it's like killing the golden goose or whatever it is, right? And so, yeah, we do take equity stakes in the company, and that's paid off richly for the university. At one point, we were getting $50 million a year in returns from equity and royalty from our spin-off companies, $50 million a year. And that then went right back into the research enterprise.
That's great. Fernando, are you already discussing that at your university? Maybe later on, Professor Newton could comment on how's the discussion here at Unicamp on that, right?
We don't have great examples to share with, but 4 years ago, I support an initiative that we have by a big beer company that invests more than $1 million trying to establish an angel investors network. And I run the regional operation, and it was very difficult to get into to attract the local investors. We have more investors from Bogota, from the capital, coming to our region, but it's more a type of mindset. It requires time and show them the results and try to gain their confidence. So it is a process, a long time process. It is not done yet. So we are struggling with that.
Newton, would you like to comment? How are
I think with our new innovation policy, we are working on this to try to establish ways of us participating and having equity in the companies that we make. And one of the discussions is exactly that. Should we invest on any companies or only companies from technology based, that are part of our portfolio, or also companies that come from the students, and we believe both should be invested. And one of the problems we have here is whenever the university actually, one way we're thinking is that you have an outside institution that will do that for the funding and everything else, just to make it a little bit more agile and easier to handle and deal with all the deals related to exiting or selling companies or bringing more money for a fund for investing as seed money. Because one of the concerns we have, let's say, if we exchange, one is specification, like if we exchange royalties or potential gains for an equity, then, or even if the university puts some direct money, okay, in the company, we have two problems. For the university to put money directly in the company, there's something related to the budget and the state budget that is really complicated. I don't think that can be done here. So the only way is to have this external company. The second thing was just an economic thing, like exchanging royalties. the concern we have here, if this will make all the deals afterwards, you know, negotiations and everything too slow, because everything will have to go through the bureaucracy of the university. So this is the biggest concern we have right now. So we are really convinced that this is a great approach. So we don't have to put money, but we basically give the technology as in exchange for equity. But that creates a little bond that may slow down the process. The other way is to create an external institution, almost like an endowment type of thing, that actually invests in the company. That's how we are working and trying to do it. So I'd like to hear if in University of Florida, if this is a problem, like whenever University of Florida has part of the company, if all the deals and business become too slow in terms of handling all this because of all the legal things related to the university.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we benefit from the fact that it's an accepted model in the United States that universities are going to take equity in companies. And so we do it enough. It really doesn't slow things down other than the negotiation of the actual terms themselves. In other words, what's the level of equity? What's the royalty rate? Okay. Those types of things. Those really slow things down, right? And what's interesting is that most of these startup companies aren't going to make it. I mean, if you look at the actual data, most of them are not going to make it. So you end up spending a lot of time arguing about something that's never going to be big enough to make an impact. I will offer something that I think personally is really interesting. There's a couple of models that are out there. One's at Penn State University, one's at the University of Minnesota. There's I think Iowa State's another one. If you're interested, Newton, I can send you some information. Flip me an email afterwards. But they have this interesting model where they go to industry and they say, okay, look, if you fund research at our university in this area, right? So we'll have a research agreement. And if you put an extra 10% or 20, I think it's 15% kicker, something like that, on top of it, essentially you buy into a licensing deal that where the no royalty essentially kicks in until the company gets to X million dollars in top line revenue, okay? And so what that does is it, first of all, simplifies the deal. It just says, here's the deal. Here's the royalty rate, and here's this and that and everything else, right? And oh, by the way, company, unless you become relatively large, you can set that revenue number wherever you want it, right? But until you become relatively large, we're not going to take any money out of your cash flow, because usually with a company, it's not actually the money that you have to pay; it's the cash flow. It's the timing of the cash that you have to pay into the university. And so they've set some really kind of interesting models. And again, I've got a couple of slides that show these different models. If you're in, I'm happy to share it with anybody. You know, but that I think has been relatively successful in at least offering an option to simplify the deal.
Right, right.
Can I make a question?
Yeah, sure.
Very quick one. I would like to know about the relation with investors for both universities. How does investors' behavior and relate with university in terms of investing on tech-based companies based on technology from university? Because what we have here, at least what I see here at our incubator, is that investors are still afraid, I don't know if that's the word, but on investing on technology, early stage companies based on technology from university. And so I would like to know, how is it in the US and in Colombia, if it is the same, or you already passed through this phase and you are in another stage? How is it?
I feel like I've been hogging the conversation, so let me invite Professor Fernando to maybe speak first.
Okay, thank you. Open innovation is the key word here for us. Open innovation, what means we invite the companies to send a team of innovation to come to the university and develop a process of innovation for their company. And it is paid, so the university does not keep a share of the company. But our experience showed that companies 2 years later have 15% of their new incomes based on those experience of open innovation. So they are quite successful, and but the university is not asking for royalties on this process that we are having. This is part of a network that we are part of it. This is Design Factory Network. This is an initiative quite interesting. So it is not a source for resources for the university. It's more a source of experience and interaction with the students, and they get exposed to international initiatives in that area. That's our case, mainly case.
And so at UF, I mean, we have a very good relationship with many investors. But if you look at investors internationally, you know, certainly in the United States, but I think this also probably is the same internationally. Look at the National Venture Capital Association and others. You know, they're used to investing in deals at a much later stage than will come out of the university, right? So it really is a much smaller subset of the investment community that's interested in really looking at university technologies. And the first thing that we try to do is essentially educate the investors to say, look, you know, understand what you're dealing with here. We're dealing with very early stage technology, many times not even at, it may be at alpha stage, you know, rarely is it at beta stage. You're dealing with a patent application. We may not have even gotten first office action back yet, right? You're dealing with 1 or 2 people that are, you know, some of the best at what they do in the world, but there's not a whole workforce around them that can pick it up and run with it. You know, you're dealing with grad students or postdocs that in some cases would, you know, they have a fundamental understanding of the technology, but very little exposure to, you know, what the business world is looking for, right? And so again, that's where a lot of our coursework and our training comes in, right? And so I think the real key is to manage expectations, you know, with the investment community to say, okay, this is what it is, right? It's not maybe what you're used to. The worst thing is that when we get investors, you know, that really can't understand this concept. So we get people that have made their money in real estate, right? Or they've inherited their money. And so in real estate, you know, investing in a tech company, let's say a computer science company, and real estate, it's like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? In real estate, if everything goes south, you still have some collateral there, right? The land doesn't go away, the buildings are typically there, whatever it is. And in a software company, if everything goes south, you have nothing. You have some computers that are all at a date, and you know, some software that didn't make it in the marketplace and so on. So it really is kind of managing that expectation. This is where I think a lot of these angel networks that start around universities, they have real problems because they're made up many times of people that are putting maybe $50,000, $60,000 at risk, you know, when the investment needed is much larger than that. And they come from a background where it's not technology based, and many times they do it more as a club than anything else. You know, it's cool to be in the club and that type of thing. So you have to match with the right investors, and then you have to make the process relatively easy. And frankly, what we do is we invite them into the labs. Go meet with the faculty, because many times what you see in the licensing office is actually not the best stuff. It's the stuff that's being developed in the labs.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. We were talking before about entrepreneurship courses and the entrepreneurship teaching and how it's done. Newton wanted to talk a little bit about that. You had some questions, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'd like to ask these questions to Fernando, where I think the environment's more similar than ours. And then to Eric.
With good, in fact, very good. 1 in 4 students taught entrepreneurship. We're
better than us.
For us, still.
2 questions. One. I mean, I see the engineer schools here still, I mean, we recently have our international institutional evaluation, and our, you know, the number of courses that they had to take, and it's very old-fashioned. So that picture that Eric showed in terms of what's the new engineer, it's not what they're doing here. So one problem, I have two questions. First, how you fit, right, this entrepreneurial type of classes in the curriculum, I mean, in the classes that they need to take? Because here, there's no more space to fit any other class. This is one question. And what I see here is that the students learn more between classes than during classes. So you learn so you provide a culture, and the culture is best. So the more they're not actually sitting and attending a class, they're learning, the more they're learning. This is one thing.
Newton, there's no space because you're killing the students slowly. Physics 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I know, but I see that, and as for grad students, even worse, because they work about their papers and their errors, and they have no time to think about anything else. And their dream is to get out of the university, find a job, and, you know, and go away from slavery. That's how it goes for students, you know, for grad students. Anyway, I've been there, so I can say. Anyways, the other question is, most of the time we don't have, you know, people. How do we do the class? Who actually teaches that? So I mean, here we actually some of these classes we organize and we invite several people to do, and not like one person teaching, because it's not that way. I think you have to bring people that really. We're not talking about entrepreneurship. We have to do entrepreneurship type of classes. You know, that's the kind of thing that I was thinking. And I'm very curious about you, Fernando, first, and then Eric, if you can comment about it. Okay?
Thank you. First, space on curriculum. Everywhere is shrinking all the time. So we have all our engineering programs are now AB certified, and that means that they cut a lot of credits that they have of institutional programs and all that. So it is shrinking all the time, and it could be that way for a long time. So in our experience, this strategic decision of the provost and vice provost helped us to get in new programs, core curriculum space for entrepreneurship, because the provost is saying that we will do it. So that helped us a lot, first point. So new programs, hospitality, and several of them, enfermería, okay, many of them. They have one or two courses inside the core curriculum as entrepreneurship. That's the strategic part. All right, the second part is, all of them, we understand that the market is not absorbing all our young graduates. So they have to face a tough position in the future. They have to decide if they have to try by themselves or try to find a good job. It is not easy. We still, as average, as international level, we have this unemployment, youth unemployment high. So there is a push of our students to find a new way to do it. When they get to the university, or when you make the initial interview, they say all the time, I want to have my own company. And during the process, we lost them. We used to lose that initiative. And when they finish the program, they want to get a job. But now that's changing. Now we are able to make something that I didn't explain clearly. This interaction between our in-house incubator and the program and the courses is critical for us. My provost tell me for 2 years, 3 years, and somebody else was in charge. He told me, hey, you have to connect, you have to work together, you have to do something with them. And he repeated to me, but somebody else was in charge. When I get it in charge, we begin to work together. And that makes a big change. that begins to show that we are very good on our in-house incubator, and now we are good on teaching, but it's part of this interaction that makes sense for us. So it is, as Eric said, is to expose the students to real situations, to bring entrepreneurs to classes. And finally, the professors are not the start of the process. They are more, as you maybe heard before, they are more supporting the process to going up to a final project. This is learning by projects, if you want. That makes a big difference. And also, we are the professors on the first courses. We are the old professors, the more interested on the experience of the students, full-time professors on the base, and then we have part-time on the final courses under our supervision. But that makes a lot of sense for us, and they keep loving these initiatives that are popping around the campus. I mean, ME 310, there is a Stanford agreement that we have that's called the Sugar Network. So these opportunities to make open innovation are very important for our students. And so these types of experience, hands-on, they love them. So we support them, bring our students to that type of experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could add just one or two things. So we have the same issue, right? The classes are packed and so on. But we found two things that really work well. One is within our structure, you know, the students, the undergrads have a number of electives. So in our structure, you know, they have a number of, you have to take these courses, and then these other courses, these other hours are electives. And they typically divide those into what's called free electives or technical electives. And the department decides which are technical electives. And so one of the things that we've done, and we spent years working with our department chairs and the faculty to show them that, look, there really is a lot of very rich technical content in take the entrepreneurship course as an example. What I mean by that is every speaker we have, every case example, everything we're doing is around engineering technology. Right? So that's why I wanted to form an entrepreneurship program in engineering in the first place, because in everything that we do, all the examples, everything we're working our way through, anytime we're talking about a value proposition, it's very technically focused, okay? And so as a result of that, the faculty have bought in. We have 9 chairs of departments. Every single one of them has bought into this to the point that they have allowed these courses to be technical electives. And so if we get to the students early enough as undergrads, then we can get them to understand, hey, listen, look at these courses because you might want to take them as technical electives. Now on the graduate side, you know, one of the things that we've done with the graduate students is we've gone to the students and to the faculty and said, here's what we suggest you do. Take the entrepreneurship class. Everything is team-based. Bring 2 or 3 people from your lab into the class, and let's do the entire process around the technology you're developing as part of your research agenda, right? And so 2 of our most successful companies, one's called Altavian, they do drones for commercial and now military applications, and then another one is called Myelin, so they have a recumbent bike for somebody that's paraplegic so that they can exercise and have experiences in life like they never could before. Both of these were formed, these companies were formed because the students, the PhD students in those cases, came into the class, took their research into the class, built the business model around it, built the value proposition around the business model canvas, and so on and so on. And what we've heard from the faculty is even those students that do that and don't form a company at the end are better researchers because they write much better proposals to the funding agencies, because they now understand the market, they now understand the value proposition, they now understand how to persuasively communicate this through their proposals. So really this goes back to our fundamental philosophy of it's not about entrepreneurship. It's about giving you that entrepreneurial mindset and making you successful or helping you be successful wherever you go.
Newton talks a lot about that, the same argument, isn't it? That all of us need entrepreneurial thinking and so on. Thank you very much. We have to start wrapping up. Thais, are you with us still? Thais is not there.
Yes, I am.
Can you make the picture, the official picture? I thought my kid was going to be
What is
here.
this picture? I heard about this this morning.
Yes, we need an official picture. Everybody's smiling. You have to be in the video as well, Thais, or not? Come on.
Yes. I'm just
Preparing myself.
Yay.
Okay.
Let me wait. Let me just. Does it work?
Photoshop a little more hair on my head, if you would.
Yeah. So just again. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
So,
Good.
work? Yes.
Yes, it works.
Thank you very much for everyone who stayed up to now right with us. Thank you, Eric and Fernando. It's always such a pleasure talking to you guys. We learn a lot. It's great experience. We'll be disseminating later on this video and the presentations. Well,
Thank you very much. We have to keep talking.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.